Welcome back to another episode of Acme's Funniest Person Podcast. I'm Bryan Miller, your host, and we're here talking about an amateur contest that has been going on for almost 35 years now and has produced some of the best comic talent in the Midwest, I would say the whole country. And we're here with last year's winner, Tia Hannes.
Hello.
You may remember Tia from, the documentary hasn't aired. We shot the little short documentary at the end of the contest, which you're obviously featured quite heavily in. Would be weird if you weren't. So I don't know if that'll be out probably after this. So
okay.
Yeah, so we can see. I think it'd be interesting to see your reactions right after winning the contest.
Yeah, because you have like the adrenaline rush still. And
totally.
Then,
and kind of the holy smokes
like,
kind
what's going on.
And everybody wants to talk to you, and everyone wants to buy you a drink, and the Star Tribune wants to talk to you, and Patrick Strait wants to talk to you, and it's dizzying,
Yeah. KS95 I think asked me to go on the radio the next day. I was like, whoa, this is weird.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's a busy. You're already building up to it. It's already a lot of hype. Even if you don't win, it's kind of dizzying.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't know, having never won, but having interviewed and been around a lot of the winners, I'm always like, oh man, they've got 95 people trying to talk to them all at the same time.
It's a little overwhelming after just being on stage too. So
yeah, it's the most attention you get for any comedy.
Right.
It takes another 2 years to have that much attention on you. Because usually it's oh, nice job, opener, and they walk by you to talk to the headliner. But that night it's you're more like the headliner than the headliner. No one talked to me after the thing. They were like, yeah, fuck you. Tia won. Nobody was interested in talking to me and Nate. We were in the corner hanging out quietly. So big year. So you won the contest last year. And how long had you been doing comedy, remind me, before the contest?
Yeah, I'd been going to open mics and stuff for about a year-ish.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. In the beginning, though, I went out very infrequently.
Sure.
I didn't think it would be as big of a part of my life as it became. But
sure.
Yeah, I'd say about a year before I did the contest. So
sure. And because before the contest, at least for a few months before, I knew who you were just because I'm I see her all the time. Which is kind of how and it's funny, now you've been around just long enough to be to not know some people, right? Have you had that where you're who's that person? They just started coming out.
Yeah.
It takes you a while to notice because some people they're there and they're gone.
Right, or they go to 2 mics and
and so your brain doesn't register people until you've seen them a few times, and that only goes, boy, let me tell you, it only gets more intense. Sometimes I'll be who's that guy? And they'll be he's been going to the mic for 3 years. And I'm I'm sorry. So you really ramped it up then.
Yeah, I think it gave me a goal to go out more.
Absolutely.
I feel a 3-minute set that's attainable. So that's when I really started going out more because I was trying to perfect the set or whatever.
Yeah,
so.
well, clearly mission accomplished. But then of course since then, I see you everywhere. You're at so many mics.
Yeah. Now it's especially after the contest, things picked up. So yeah.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that. You got some interesting shows. But you also now you get up all the mics, and you're here on Tuesdays. You're up very frequently. So now, how often do you say you go out now to do comedy a week?
Oh man, so the goal I feel with everyone is always to try to go out every night, but that's I don't know, not always attainable. So
you gotta live.
Yeah, you're still a person, So I'd say I'm out probably at least 4 nights a week, give or take on the week. Some weeks it's every night, and then sometimes it's less. But I've been trying to come here every Tuesday, and then usually some stuff on the weekends. So fit in some mics between then. Yeah. Yeah.
You're kind of on that. You're kind of on that career track now in terms of maybe you do or don't want to do this for a long-term career, but you're kind of on that you're doing the work that one does if that's what one is pointed to. Put it that way. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
You're kind of doing all the things that you're supposed to do at the beginning, which is just show up all the time, write a lot of new jokes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You said when you first started, you didn't come out. It was you didn't expect it to be. A career track potentially, right?
No, not at all.
Totally hobby vibe. You think?
I just I came to Acme a couple times and watched the mic, and I used to do theater and stuff when I was younger. So I was oh, that'd be kind of fun to perform, and I wasn't interested in theater anymore.
Sure.
So I was oh, stand-up's a little bit cooler than that, so maybe I'll do that. But I thought it would be just like something I'd try a couple times, but I liked it. So
yeah, because some people are like James Stanley. You kind of get the impression, and myself too, was like there was part of them that was like secretly wanting this to be their job for a while before they even started. They like, a lot of people I think even some people are like, I'm gonna do that, but some people are like, I could never do that, but wouldn't that be cool? And then once they start, they're like chasing that. But some people like will do it for a year off and on, and then it'll click, and they'll be like, you know what, I'm serious about that.
Yeah. I never once thought about it as like a practical career.
Sure, but now you're doing it to the point where you're moving up into a spot where, I mean, you're getting hired for opening spots, right? And then and as you're building up more material, you're going to get asked to MC more, and then you'll start featuring. So that's kind of the pipeline to doing comedy, like pretty seriously.
Yeah. I mean, I think I am treating it pretty seriously now. But yeah, it still is weird to think about it as like a career. I don't know.
And I think honestly, it's better not to too much. It was like, it's good to think, get an Instagram following, post clips, that sort of thing. But like, I think some people think too much of the business part at the beginning, and it's like, no, just write a ton of jokes and have fun.
Right.
You can burn yourself out thinking too businessy.
Right. I would say that's exactly where I'm at right now, is I really just want to like build up an act and write jokes that I like and get rid of old bad jokes.
Yeah. I think you're actually the single most fun part, as far as I can tell, of comedy. I thought the most fun part was when you're like, you've got the hang of it, so you don't do bad very much anymore.
Sure.
You're like, I know how to do this if I do my best 5. These people will like me. But you have everything's in front of you, and you're just like, I just have to write a bunch of jokes and hang out with my friends and tell a bunch of jokes.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
It's like when those movie actors would be like, I had to gain 20 pounds, so I had to go to steakhouses and eat French fries and milkshakes. And it's like, what? That's the best part, right? That has to be
awesome.
better than the movie.
Yeah.
So now are you... I mean, is comedy, would you say, kind of the main focus of your, like, kind of professional career, as it were? I mean...
Yeah, I'm kind of, like, in a weird spot career-wise. I'm, like, in between jobs right now.
I'd suss that out from your act, basically, too, by the way.
Yeah. I'm, like, working a couple part-time jobs. I was working when I did the contest, I was working a 9 to 5. And I don't know, it was really boring. So
9 to 5 sucks.
So I quit and just like lived off of like savings for a little bit. Now I just have a couple different part-time jobs. So yeah, I guess I'm trying to prioritize comedy more. It's really difficult, I thought, to go to mics every night and stay up late and then go to your job really early in the morning. So
yeah.
Some people do that. I think it's easier if you have like a remote job, but I had to go into an office, so I just got burnt out. But
totally. I'm always impressed by people who are like, for the first 5 years, I went out 5 nights a week, and I never, I worked 9 to 5 because I was a newspaper guy, so like, I worked some.
Yeah, or like people that have kids and stuff. I'm like, how are you doing this right now?
Yeah, like Elise Cole will be out here pregnant as hell, featuring, crushing, and then she's like, all right, I'm gonna have this baby. I'll be right back. You'll see all my new jokes. It's like, damn, you're working hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, that's great. I think you're in a great kind of phase of it. And so that's kind of why I wanted to wait to talk to you for an episode till, rather than do it right afterwards. Because, like, don't you feel like I'm maybe not, but do you feel like you've learned like a lot more about comedy
since the contest?
Like,
oh yeah,
like most of what you know is post contest, basically, right?
Yeah, I feel like I still have so much to learn. Like,
sure.
Yeah.
But like how things work now, and like a kind of
I didn't really know anything like going into like business.
How the scene works.
No.
How a mic gets put together and the hierarchy of who's on the mic and all those little details that are like the business, but they're not like, it's not the business exactly, but it kind of is.
Right.
It's more like the social construct of comedy.
Definitely. Yeah, there's like a hierarchy. All I knew doing the contest is that Acme was the best club like in the Midwest.
You can say that on this podcast very confidently. And it is, but you can definitely say that on this podcast.
That's like pretty much all that I knew. So I like waited to use my star to go up at the mic until like right before the contest, because I was like wanted Acme to only see me once I had like figured it out somewhat, I guess.
Yeah. No, there's two kind of schools of thought on that, and I don't think either one's more or less right, but maybe I skew toward yours a little bit. Where I'm like, go do some crappier mics for a while, get a little experience under your belt, and then come here. I think people can wait too long, where they're like, I talked to one girl, it was like, she was really nice and she was really enthusiastic. And she was like, well, I mean, I might have to wait a year before I try getting up at Acme because I want to make sure I'm so good. And it's like, you might want to get in line a little sooner than that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
It's not like they're going to see you once. You're going to do 1 3-minute regular set. And they're going to be like, every week she has to go up. It's like, you're still going to have to wait your turn. So go ahead.
And with the contest, they know you're an amateur. Like,
absolutely, exactly.
So
no, I mean, your timing of it worked out very well. So you win the contest, big night, obviously. Talk to everybody. And then how did things kind of, course, we start focusing more on comedy. What else kind of changed, or what else did you kind of learn after that?
Like in terms of comedy?
The whole thing. I'm intentionally broad here.
Yeah. I feel like the main thing that changed, like I said, I hadn't really been going out to mics that much. Like I went out a lot right before the contest, but like prior to that, I maybe like a couple times a month. Like it wasn't wasn't as big a part of my life. But after the contest, because then I started getting regular time at the mic here.
Yeah.
I just felt really pressured to write a bunch, like, and I feel still kind of in that boat, like, where I just want to present like new stuff every week and utilize, because the stage time here it's an open mic, but it doesn't feel like an open mic.
It's a little different. Like you've seen now too when people from out of town come here and they do the mic, they're like, holy shit, this is your open mic? They're like, this is more people than I perform for in a week.
Right. Yeah. It's really, kind of like a mind fuck going from like Mondays at Moose with like 2 drunk guys in the audience to then a full 300 room.
But it's important.
And they're both open mics.
They are both open. You're absolutely right. It's kind of like 150-page book as a novel and a 2,000-page book as a novel. And you're like, I mean, technically they're both novels. These are different. But they're both important, I think. It's like you got to have those, those small mics, because sometimes you're like, I got to work this out. I only want 50 or more people to see this. You know, like I think it's great to get all those levels of experience of size of audience and different kinds of audience.
Yeah,
it's all part of like the ecosystem.
Right. I feel like I get more nervous for the like 2 people audiences too, because it's too intimate.
Yeah.
It's just you and them.
It's much harder, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
The bigger the crowd, I think it only gets easier for the most part. I mean, you have to adjust your timing. We were talking a little about that. Like when you get to a theater show, you have to adjust your timing, but like if there's 1,000 people in the room and only half of them laugh, like
that's still 500
500 people laughing, and that's not that good. And like you should be able to make more than half the crowd laugh at any given joke. You know, when you're doing your tight stuff, right? So you're like, oh my god, 500. But even half the room laughs, you're like, it feels pretty good. You know. Whereas if you have 10 people and 5 of them laugh,
and you can see it on all their faces.
Yeah, and the other 5, you're like, woo, boy.
Yeah.
So yes, you've been doing tons of mics, and then it's funny. Obviously, you won, so you did what you were supposed to do. When you look back, what do you think you were like naive about in the contest?
Ooh, like.
Was there anything that you look back on and you were like, "Oh, you sweet summer child! I can't believe I thought that," or "I can't believe I did that," or "I can't believe I worried about that"? Now that I know what I know.
Sure.
I mean, you had your head on pretty straight to begin with.
I'm trying to think if there's anything. I think which maybe you can see this in the little documentary thing we did. The prelims, I think I was way too nervous for those. And then by the finals, I was like, oh, this is just a set, you know.
That's an incredible lesson to learn that fast.
Yeah,
honestly.
so
really
like
is.
I think the first round I was like a nervous wreck, and there's no need to do that.
Yeah. Because like there's totally a chance, by the way, that if you would have not made the finals, you'd still be getting regular time at the mic. Or that if you'd been in the finals but not won.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely helps to catch attention that you won. But what really got people's attention was that you were good. And so it's like, well, you could have a bad set, lose the contest, and still be very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I guess other than naive, I didn't really care too much if I lost or won or anything, too. I just kind of wanted to have a good set for a full audience, because at that when you're that new to comedy, you don't get to perform for crowds
Right.
like this often. So, like, I cared more about that, I think, than, like, the outcome of it.
Sure. It was the biggest crowd he'd performed for
Yeah.
at that point, right?
Yeah, at that time.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and
I'd performed at the open mic, like, using my star once.
Right.
Like,
but it wasn't sold out, probably,
Right,
I mean,
yeah,
with the back
So-
rows full, like.
Yeah.
No, and that was probably would have been mine, was like taking that outcome more seriously, not more serious, but too seriously, and being like, just focus on the process,
Yeah.
focus on the set, because the other stuff is kind of out of your hands.
Yeah.
If you focus on the set and you have a good set and you do your best, well, that's what you can do. That's the best you
Right.
can do. Like
Yeah.
the outcome is up to the judges,
Yeah.
and up to maybe the person. I just heard of a story. And I won't say who because it was kind of a hilariously embarrassing story, but a guy who won an equivalent contest at a big club in another big market, and the comic who was telling me the story was like, this guy had never been very funny, but he's like, I was there that night and he caught lightning in a bottle. It was like the best set of his life, and he did a couple of riffs and the riffs worked, and he's like, and so this guy won this contest, and he goes, he's not very good, but he's like,
It's a fluke.
yeah, but my buddy was saying that like undeniably this guy won that night.
Sure, yeah.
So if you were the second funniest person that night, 6 out of 7 nights you win that contest.
Sure.
But that was night number 7, and that guy had that set. Like, it happens.
Yeah,
you know?
I actually lost my semi night.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
You
So
was
to
somebody,
Foz.
right? Because obviously,
Yeah.
because he made the because whoever beat you would have had to have made the finals.
Yeah.
I can do that math.
Yeah, so I almost wasn't even in the finals.
Yeah, you could have been you could have been second also in terms of overall points for all you know.
Sure.
But chances are you're probably third or fourth if you lost to
Is
to
it
Foz.
is your score cumulative for the
not
contest,
from only within the round.
Oh, okay.
Right, so they don't add your prelim score to your second round score or
okay.
anything.
Okay.
But like in the second round, it's possible that you had the second most points because they might have, you know what I mean? They might have had Foz at 100 total points, and you might have been at 99. And then the winner from the other night might have been at 85. You never know,
see.
right? I mean, it.
I just had a better night.
Yeah, exactly. So if the two best people are on the same night, the obviously inherently one of them can't win, but they might still be the two top scorers. It's all cumulative scoring, which I think favors that really. I like that a lot because if it's just the winner of each night, then it becomes like, well, what if we had a night where three
stacked night?
Yeah, right. Where it was like what would have been first, second, and third all went on the same night, and then now the other nights are just coasting by. And I say that as someone who got totally scorched on that at a really, really big festival contest.
Oh no!
Where like one of the judges came back and they were like, you were fourth on your day, but they were like, you were 5th in the overall scoring.
Oh,
They're like, you
no.
beat everybody the next night, but we only did and I was just like, oh, that's nice to know. It's like, great. It was still
I almost wish you didn't tell me.
almost. It was still a really great experience, but I was like, that would have been nice. But yeah, I mean, so that's kind of the way the mechanics of it work, and then, but that's all the mechanics of any contest or festival are ultimately they're different and they're out of your hands. So the only thing that you can do is do your best and hope everybody else does well, but not as better than you. And am I mistaken? Did you open a show at First Avenue?
Yeah, it was at the 7th Street entry.
Okay, that's still pretty
not
cool.
quite as big of a deal, but it was still
That's a pretty big deal.
Someone who was born and raised in Minnesota, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. That's a famous club nationally. I mean.
Yeah, and like I'd been going to concerts. I never thought I'd be performing at First Step because I'm not a musician, you know,
Right.
So
exactly.
But I got to there were a comedy band called the Wolves of Glendale, and they wanted. I actually don't really know how they found me. I think someone must have recommended me or something because I don't have like clips online or anything.
I think it was the booker from. Did the band request you, or did the booker request you?
So someone who worked at First Ave reached out to me on Instagram and then asked me to send a clip, and then I sent him a clip, and then I think the band then picked me. So I think they.
I can't say for sure, but one of the judges of the contest was Sonia, who's the booker at First Avenue.
Yeah, it might. I did talk to her afterwards, but I can't.
She's very cool.
Remember.
She
yeah,
really likes comedy.
She's
she
awesome.
pays attention to comedy. She's very cool. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It might not have been that, but like, there's a good chance that Sonia's seeing you here at the contest.
She did tell me she had seen me before, but I don't know if she recommended me.
Sure.
But it must have been through like word of mouth or something because I don't have anything online. But
or, it could have been another booker there saw you here or something like that. I don't know, but like it definitely doesn't hurt that you got to. That's one of those weird little like Dana Gould calls it. He says things lead to things in comedy.
Sure,
you never know what do things and they'll lead to things. So how did I get this? I don't know. I did this that led to this that led to that. So it's there's a world where you're like, okay, so I worked hard in this contest, so then I made the finals. The First Avenue booker was one of the judges. Then I popped into her mind. Things. That's how these things do come about.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was really
you could never
surreal.
plan it that way, right? You're like,
no,
I'll go to the 7th Street entry stage.
Yeah, you don't think as you're doing the Acme open mic that you're gonna get a first Ave opportunity. Yeah.
Or when you're, anybody who's done a Conan or a TV spot, ultimately that led back to they were at some bar open mic trying some crap out,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
It's like that's kind of where that does start. But I don't think most people, when you're at the crappy bar open mic, just like throwing ideas at the wall, you're like, yeah, this will probably end up on NBC, But sometimes it does. So how was that opening at First Avenue?
Yeah, it was super surreal. It was really cool. It was interesting performing stand-up for people that are also standing up.
Yes.
I've never done that before. So
that's very different.
Yeah.
It's like I did First Ave, but when I did it was a sit. They brought chairs in.
Oh, no, they were all standing.
But no, the entry, they don't bring chairs into the entry. It doesn't really work that way. So that's almost feels like punkier venue than the main
100%. Yeah.
How was it when people were standing?
I thought it like helped the energy. Like I thought cuz the Wolves of Glendale are a comedy band, so the crowd was a little bit rowdier because they were like drinking and like expecting a band, so to be like singing along and dancing. So everyone was in a really good mood, I would say, which I think helped. I think it worked fine with normal stand-up. I was worried it was going to be weird, but I would love to go back if I ever
That's
do anything.
Very interesting. How much time did you do?
I did 15.
Okay, that's a real chunk of time though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more like if the people had been distracted and not paying attention, it would have felt really long. 15 is long enough that it can feel.
Yeah.
You're like,
oh, right.
No. No, that's great. And opening for musicians is tough because, like I said, comedy band is a little different.
Yeah.
But it's still, people are coming expecting this one vibe, and comedy is a very like quiet down and focus.
Yeah, that's
type thing.
What I was worried about, that they were going to be like too rowdy. But I think because they were a comedy band, they expected to laugh.
But you still have to like, if you hadn't been good and you hadn't been like authoritative, really, if you hadn't been like, she knows what she's doing, like you could have lost them fast. Like if you'd have been all nervous and your first couple jokes, that's the kind of crowd that can very easily be like, and I'll pay attention in 15 minutes. I'm going for a beer.
They're like, I want to drink and sing along.
So you have to hold them. That's a crowd that's at a comedy club. They're already sitting. They're already focused. They know what they'll give the comic more leeway. Something like that can that can be a volatile situation. So
I guess it's kind of like doing like a rowdy bar show.
Yeah, it is a lot closer to doing like a rowdy bar show for sure. Which is a good experience to have that, but it's a lot more cool to do it at a rowdy bar show.
It was weird though. I asked them before the show, I was like, so am I supposed to host this like a comedy show?
Sure.
Like, am I supposed to do like the 3 clap thing and like all the like thanks for coming out, like all that stuff? And they were all like, we don't know. Like, I think it was the first stand-up they had in 7th Street, like just straight up stand-up.
Wow, that's cool.
Me. So they didn't really know what to do either.
That's not 100% because Chris Maddock recorded his album there.
Oh, okay.
It's called Point of Entry.
Oh, well.
But he like rented it out, or you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
When he did it, it was like, and this was like 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. It was his first album. It's an amazing album, by the way. But when he did it, it was like, they were like, yeah, I guess. Like, they liked him, but it was like totally not a thing they'd ever done.
That's cool. Yeah.
And so it was like one show. He did it one time. It's the only time I think I ever remember here of a stand-up. It was the only other time.
Yeah, or maybe they meant like for opening for someone. I don't know, but
they probably weren't there when Maddox recorded. This
sure.
was 10 years ago. But literally, that's the only other example I can even think of.
Yeah. So like it was new to. They didn't know really how to run it either. Like they were like, this is new to us too.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, I'll just run it like a stand-up show then, and like I just hosted it like you would a normal show. Which is
you
weird,
brought the
though.
band up direct then?
No, there was like a 5-minute intermission or so because they had to like set up stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, that's a pretty. That's a lot of different people don't realize that's when stand-up gets hard is
Yeah.
when there's all these different factors or curveballs that are coming at you, you know, where you're like, well, I know what to do when they say my name at Acme and I walk through the curtain or I walk up through the stage and everyone's sitting in focus. But when they're like, okay, the lights are going to be weird. We don't know how to run this.
Yeah.
It's going to be a weird time. Everyone's standing up. Like, that's what throws people, you know, and you're like, that makes it challenging. So it was nicely done to roll through that. And it sounds like it went well.
Yeah, I think it was good.
That's great. That's very cool. So yeah, that's a pretty big get, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that was
You can cross that off your list. I've done that.
I didn't know that was something I could put on my list.
Exactly. That's the best kind, right? You're like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what's your kind of, without, I sound like I'm interviewing you for college. What are your future goals? But like, what comedy future wise? You're writing jokes. Obviously, you're doing new stuff. What are you looking to do in the next year? Not necessarily like I want to get hired here, you know, but just like stuff that you can do. You know, stuff that's in your control. What are you trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it. Like right now, I'm just really focusing on writing as much as I can and like getting a really solid act. I think I would like to. I feel like in the beginning, maybe working on a good like host set, because like a host set is different than like a feature act, you know, like
or just a mic set where you don't have to like introduce. You just can come up and be like, "Here's a joke."
Yeah, or like jokes. I guess what I mean by host set is maybe like more jokes that are more like universal. I guess like that can work with aren't as like niche or work with many different like demographics of crowds.
Sure.
I'm kind of working on that because I feel like it's easy. Especially if you start going to like the same types of mics, like maybe in like Minneapolis, like you're going to like CCU and Bryant Lake Bowl, and like you get good at like Minneapolis young person comedy, but it's like then you get thrown out to do like some crazy bar show in the middle of nowhere, and you're like, oh, they don't know what a Gemini is.
Yeah. They have no idea what the hell I'm talking about.
So
yeah, or even honestly, a Thursday show. Some people will, a lot of times, new MCs here will be like, "Oh man, the stuff that I do at the mic, like some of the stuff that crushes at the mic didn't do very well on Thursday, and some of the stuff that doesn't work very well on Tuesday crushed on Thursday." It's like, because the Thursday crowd was 40 years old. Yeah, you know, and the Tuesday crowd was 22 and a half years old. It's a big difference.
Definitely. Yes, I think right now I'm probably just focusing on trying to make jokes that are more universal or like have different sets for different types of people. I'm trying to read the crowd better and have stuff for them. And just really build my time. I guess that's really the only goal I kind of have right now is like have a stronger, longer act.
Sure. Like if somebody, you're basically maybe by the end of 24, if someone would have said like, "Hey, I really need you to do 25."
Right. Or have like a good
25. You can persevere for 25 minutes, I feel like.
But it's not going to be good.
You're like, you guys are going to love the first 12 minutes. I remember that era too of being like, there was a point in time where I probably had like for a young guy, a pretty killer 5, and then like a pretty solid next 10, and then the next 10 was and so you're like, how do I parse this out? Like I have to win them over to not totally suck, but I got to save a little something. I can't end on this. You know, it's like to not have to worry about that when you're like, oh, I actually have 25 minutes is
right. That I feel good about. Yeah. And not that I'm worried about.
Yeah. It's a real, it's a nice
like,
feeling.
I can do 20, but it's going to be.
And that happens at every phase. Then you'll feature for a while and then someone will be like, hey, we got this great headline spot for you over in Eau Claire or something. Like you can do 45, right? And you're like, yeah. But then you're like, I have 39 that I like, you know, and then but then the same process happens all over again. Yeah. And then, but by then, when someone will say, "Can you do 25?" You're like, "Well, I could do 2 different 25s." So
sure.
125, very easy to do. You know, I have tons of backup stuff.
Yeah.
It's a nice feeling when you have that reserve. I remember that feeling of trying to build up that reserve of jokes that you just like, if I have to, I can go to.
Oh, sure.
That I'm confident about. Because I was always so self-conscious of if I said I could do 25, like I didn't want to lie to anybody. I want to be like, no.
Yeah.
I can really like confidently for sure do 25 minutes that like looks professional. And I was always like, I need 5 more jokes. I need 5 more jokes, you know. And I still sometimes feel like that at a corporate, especially. I'm like, how do I not have 5 more minutes of clean jokes?
I'm sure that would be difficult.
But at a headline, I'm now at a headline set. I'm like, oh, I could do my old headline act if I, you know what I mean? Like once you have that much in reserve, you're like, it's nice to not have to worry about the clock. Where you're like,
yeah, Yeah.
I mean, I could just talk for an hour and say all the old jokes, and it'll fill the time. So now, you don't have to worry as much. But
you can do the job.
Yeah, but it's good to be worried about the time because that means you're concerned about delivering. Some people are more concerned about being asked to do stuff and being paid to do stuff than they are delivering.
Oh.
They're like, hey, I got to feature at this place. And it's like, yeah, but you can't.
Right.
Like, you got to ask.
That's like my worst nightmare is being asked to do a gig and it's like I agree to it and I don't have the time for it. I don't want to do that because it hurts.
Yeah. Mine too. And it can hold you back a little bit. I would say advice to you and to everybody. Like, you're doing the right thing. But every now and then if you're like, I'm not sure, it's like, just say yes. Sometimes you can naysay your way out of it.
Lower stakes
Yeah,
stuff
if somebody's
sure.
like, hey, can you do a clean corporate hour? You're like, no, I cannot do that. No. But like, I think sometimes I would turn stuff down in retrospect. Like, yeah, you could have done that. Like being too conscientious can almost bite you in the ass a little bit.
Right, you can't be too much.
But
of a perfectionist.
if I was a booker or a club owner, like, please bring me all the conscientious comics who only tell me they can do things they can for sure do. Like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, any advice? You're still the reigning queen. You still have the crown for a little while. You'll have to pass it on to another comic here in September. Any advice for the future contestants of 2024?
Ooh, that's a good question. It is hard to say because everyone's so different, and like what works for me might not work for you, I guess. But I guess I would say it's only 3 minutes, so I personally I just went straight into jokes. So I think, which I guess if you're a really good like riffer, you're really confident in like your abilities with that, maybe do that. But I found it to be the most effective and you're trying to have as many punchlines as possible. Yes. So, I just tried to make the most out of that 3 minutes and didn't waste like any time up top, is I guess I would say.
I think that's great advice. No, I think that's
just start going right into it.
Yeah, because they're ready. They've already seen.
Yeah, no, even like keep it going for the next. No, that's like time you could use is how I thought about it. But
that's exactly it. Chad Daniels says that. That's a piece of Chad Daniels advice
really?
I've heard him give, which is like,
it's
it's one thing if you're headlining. It's like kind of like. Polite to be like, hey, keep it going for the openers. Sure. Aren't they great or whatever? Because like you got 55 minutes to play with.
Yeah,
all the space. It's like you got time to do that. Be courteous. But it's not like you're being rude. But in a spot like that, I've only got this limited time.
3 minutes is so short.
Yeah, it's like use every single second of that 3 minutes. And the 15 seconds of you going, isn't everybody else great? And I'm going to collapse. It's
also, they're tired of doing that, I feel like. If everyone
I've made them clap
does
so many times by the time the contestants get up. Because I'm like, I do meet my set. And then I'm like, and here are the judges. And here then people are just clapping their asses off. And they got to clap every time each of you guys goes on and off.
Yeah.
It's like adding another clap. It's like we've already clapped fucking 20 times.
Right. Like if I were an audience member, I wouldn't want to do that. So
that is a really great piece. It's almost like buys you goodwill that like, I don't have to clap again for no reason. Yeah. That's a really good point. But the time use is very smart.
Yeah, I guess that's the only real piece of advice is what I did, I guess I just tried to do a quick joke right away because it's so short and then get into your stuff so they like you right away.
I think that's great advice. Clearly it worked. Yeah. Well, we'll be seeing you at the mic as we have been, and then are you gonna come out and watch the contest? You think?
Yeah, I could swing.
I think you
by.
should. I think you should.
At least like the finals.
I think it's classy for the reigning champ to come by. Andy was here. Andy Dwong came out and checked it out last time. It's kind of nice. You're like, I've done this. You can. You're not nervous anymore.
It's a good night too. Like it's packed in here, so it's a fun show to watch. And,
and you get to see me do like 25 minutes. What
so
could
why
be better?
wouldn't I come? Yeah.
No, I do get to book. I do get to bring some comics along. We always have a great lineup.
Yeah.
So it'll be a killer lineup.
It's a great show.
I haven't booked it yet, but it'll be.
Yeah.
It'll be 3 very funny people. That's awesome. And we'll be seeing you hopefully at the contest and at Acme in general.
Yeah, well, thanks for having
coming out.
me. Yeah, bye everyone.